385 runs scored in a game at the Firozshah Kotla. Not sure how many people would have called that. But at the end of a bit of a run fest in Delhi, it is Sunrisers Hyderabad who come out on top by 9 runs, handing Delhi Capitals what could well be a very damaging defeat in what was already a very slim chance they held to potentially make a bid for the top 4. On Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 Time Out. One last time this Saturday evening, off we go with Tom Moody and Matt Roller. Tom, a well-earned win, you'd say, because in both innings, Sunrisers were in positions where things could have slipped far away.
Yeah, look, absolutely, they were challenged. It was a far better quality contest between these two teams than what we saw on Monday in Hyderabad. That's one positive. And again, it was nice to see some different personalities or players step up than what we've seen previously. I'm sure both teams will be pleased, regardless of the outcome, that they're seeing other players step up and perform. So, you know, the Sunrisers really held their nerve. There was a time there when Salt and Marsh were going hard. The dugout looked pretty glum, and it looked like it was potentially going to be chased down, which we thought at the half-time mark was, you know, near on, not impossible, but we thought it was pretty, you know, distant. They were, you know, probably going to be 20 or 30 runs short of that particular total. And
it was around that time that Tom mentions that you were also seeing for the first time broad smiles in the Delhi dugout. Who might have thought that a third win on the bounce is almost on the cards, but just slipped away.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think those two games that we've seen back-to-back between these two teams have probably shown us why they occupy the positions that they do in the table. I think there's been moments where both of them have been in control of games and kind of let them slip. I think we've seen that in both run chases, actually. If you think back to Monday night's game as well, I think, yeah, both of them sort of coming across at least as teams that are relatively low on confidence and haven't quite worked out combinations relatively late in the tournament as well. So, much as there were some positives for Delhi, I think they're sort of probably reflecting on it tonight and thinking maybe they could have won that game based on where they were, but also they're probably now starting to look towards next season, because I think this year's pretty much done for them. I think they're going to have to win every game and rely on some other results going the right way as well, which is a pretty bleak spot to be in before we've even reached the start of May.
So let's get into that phase where you'd say the game turned decisively in the second innings. 87 needed in 9. You've got two well-set batters, both going great guns in Salt and Marsh. At that point in the next 5 overs, Tom, we saw Sunrisers back their spinners. Mayank Markandeya was having a great night, but you saw Abhishek Sharma bowl, Akil Hussain bowl. Those 5 overs, 30 for 4, the difference eventually.
Yeah, the key point to that was the caught and bowled from Markandeya. That was a very good catch off Salt. Salt was running hot. And we know he's got that capability. We haven't seen it in the IPL yet, but we've seen it on the international stage and through other platforms of the game. He's a dangerous player, and he showed why he's a threat. So that was really the turning point for me, because after that we saw a series of wickets which put unnecessary pressure on Marsh. We saw Manish Pandey go cheaply. We then saw Priyam Garg come in for his first game for a new franchise, you know, under pressure. So momentum's lost. Then Sarfaraz comes in. And then the whole puzzle around that, where's Axar Patel? Was he sort of in the dressing room, or, you know, collecting his kit out of the car, or what was he doing? Because I don't understand, why didn't he come in at the fall of the wicket of Manish Pandey? You know, he's the most experienced player. He's an international player. He's in form, and he's a left-hander. And spin was operating. To me, it was a no-brainer that he came in at that point.
I saw that tweet you posed just towards the end of that game, and I thought that'll be the question I posed to you. It just doesn't add up, because this has been happening all through. He has been one of their fine batters, one of the rare batters, like you said in that. What explains it?
Oh, look, they've obviously got their reasons. And again, it's easy for us sitting here, you know, from a distance, making our observations out of the pressure of a dugout. And, you know, I've had the privilege of being in that dugout on a number of occasions and know what it's like. But you try to make measured decisions that really the odds stack up in your favour. You've got good people around you. You look at that Delhi dugout. You've got Ponting as the head coach. You've got Sourav Ganguly, one of India's great minds and captains. You've got Watson, you've got Ajit Agarkar, you've got James Hopes, who's been around a long time as a coach. So I said Watson, didn't I? Yeah. So you've got an incredible amount of sort of experience. So it'd be so interesting to understand the logic behind that deployment or lack of deployment of Patel at that point.
The only thing I can think of is potentially they feel he's not competent against spin, but I think we've seen he's a pretty good player of spin, and particularly from if you look at the sort of the spinners that Sunrisers were using with a slow left armer and a leg spinner, you'd think it should be pretty good for a left-hander coming in at that point to take him on. And particularly, I thought those Sunrisers spinners bowled pretty well actually. Akhil Hossain obviously didn't have a great time of it, but I thought both Abhishek and Mayank Markanday did pretty well. Slowed the ball up as well. I think there was the wicket of Priyam Garg was only about 70 k's an hour from Markanday, but it was a clever piece of bowling to get him. I think he did well to avoid being stumped and end up dragging it onto his own stumps. But from the Delhi point of view, looking at those guys being successful through the middle, some sort of maybe not major established international spinners to be running through their middle order full of right-handers, and looking at the experienced international left-hander they had in the sheds, as Tom says, it just doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, not the first thing from the Delhi camp that will baffle us for the moment this season. But how much credit do you give to the captaincy in a situation like this? Again, that 87 needed in 9, you had one bowler, Umran Malik, with the kind of over he'd had, you wouldn't have been sure whether you can go back to him. How do you assess how Markram managed his bowling in that back end?
I think he did a good job. I think Markram looks composed to me as a captain. I know Sunrisers haven't had a great campaign to date. His form with the bat hasn't been as he would have liked. He started off all guns blazing, but he sort of just tapered off, which I think he's been a victim of the uncertainty around what's happening with that batting order. But the batting order today looked pretty much on point, and let's hope it remains that way, because I think it just looked a lot better balanced. It just looked like it had a better flow to it. But managing those bowlers in that situation, that's a huge advantage of having that impact sub. You have the flexibility of depth in your options. Natarajan comes in, as your impact sub. He's an international left-arm bowler that specialises at the death. So it gives you depth in your bowling options. Abhishek Sharma can come in and lend a hand, and he would have welcomed that opportunity, because I know how much he is driving to be that batting all-rounder. He's worked very hard, and he's had a very good season for Punjab with his bowling, along with his batting in domestic cricket. So reward for him. They've got the flexibility with their attack on the ground, but I think every team has the luxury of that now with this impact sub.
Worth spending some extra minutes on Mayank Markanday, who continues his incredible campaign so far, having joined the team late on. You see a game where nearly 400 have been scored, and one spinner, 2 for 20. Top job.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I like the pacey bowls. I like the variety he's got. He's clearly deceiving a lot of batters with his wrong-un, which is a real ace up his sleeve. He's a real win for the Sunrisers, because it enables them. I know they played as an overseas spinner today, but it enables them to not have to consider Akhil Hossain or Adil Rashid as options. They can go for a pace overseas, or if not, go another overseas batter if they chose to. So has given them the confidence and the assurity that they've got quality spin, and he's delivered, day in, day out. So, great bonus for them.
10 wickets now in 6 games since he broke into this 11 late in the season. What stood out for you?
Yeah, well, I think it's already his second best IPL season in his career in terms of wickets, and obviously we're only halfway through this campaign, so I think he seems to have thrived, having been given that backing by the management to sort of come in and be the main spinner through the middle overs, because I suppose it wasn't necessarily obvious at the start of the year who that was going to be for Sunrisers. We saw Rashid get a couple of games at the start of the competition. We've seen Hussain today, but Markanday's actually been the real standout out of their spin options, which, yeah, it probably wouldn't have been what was expected coming into the season, but I think he's done really well, and yeah, gives them real balance, because, as Tom says, they can, if they decide that they want to give Marco Jansen another go, and obviously Imran Malik's had a pretty tough time of it recently, then maybe that's the way that they can rebalance and give themselves even more batting if they need to as well.
If we look at it from Delhi's perspective, really two standout performances. Mitch Marsh with bat and ball, registering only the 6th instance of a player taking a 4-for and hitting a 50 in the same IPL game. Tom, how much can they take from Phil Salt's knock and Mitch Marsh, just the kind of all-round outing he had?
That's exactly what Delhi Capitals have been looking for, is someone else apart from David Warner to step up and score runs. David Warner was dismissed early tonight, and it was nearly a case of a bit of a sigh through the whole of the capital. Wow, okay, who's going to score runs now? But both Phil Salt and Mitch Marsh showed their quality. All that was required was one of them to go on and get an 80 plus. And if that happened, it may have been a total they would have chased down. But as I explained once, Salt was dismissed. Marsh, saw the demise at the other end, and that just made it even a higher mountain for him to climb. But if he had a little bit of support at the other end, and that's where the injection of Akshar Patel may have been the smarter play, more of an experienced player coming in to partnership with Marsh at that point, it may have been a different outcome.
From the perspective of Salt, he'd only had 2 outings before this, but in a setup like this, you might not get a lot of chances. So, big one for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he wouldn't necessarily have come into this IPL season expecting to play too much. If you think of the overseas players and overseas batters, particularly that Delhi Capitals have, I think Rovman Powell and Riley Russo both on the bench at the moment. But yeah, he did really well, and I think particularly, I think he'll be pleased reflecting on how well he played the left-arm spinner Akil Hussain, because he's come into this competition off a pretty difficult time in Bangladesh with England, where I think 5 out of 6 innings across that white ball tour he was dismissed by left-arm spin. Obviously, Bangladesh have a lot of left-arm spinners that you can get dismissed by, but to sort of come through that and seemingly learned and evolved. He's at that point in his career, sort of mid-20s, where he's trying to get better all the time, trying to evolve as a player and try and become a sort of England regular as well. So I'm sure he'll be pleased to have come through and to have, I suppose, arrived at the IPL 3 games into his first season.
Yeah, so something for Delhi to build on. Let's take a look at the points table, where the movement was going to happen at the bottom in this, and Sunrisers Hyderabad, well, they do climb for the moment above Mumbai Indians as well on net run rate. They get to 6 points after 8 games. Delhi, like we've already mentioned, 4 points in a position where it'll have to be 6 out of 6 wins, you'd imagine, from here to stand any chance at all of making it. Tom, Sunrisers, such a confidence-boosting win, as you've already mentioned, and the next game is against someone part of that bunch. They host Kolkata Knight Riders in a few days from now. It's still 1 or 2 wins, and you're right in the pack.
Absolutely. That they could nearly sort of, make the point that this is the start of our campaign. Tonight's the start. Let's forget what's happened. Tonight's the start of our campaign, and nearly, press reset or reboot like you do on your phone, and just forge forward. Take everything out of tonight and just go charging forward with a, throw everything into it, and nothing to lose, because they've got the personnel. We know that. That's why they've been talked about by some pundits out there. They're a team that should be in the top 4, and it's just a case of that momentum starting to grow, and them continuing to stick with some continuity with their 11 and particularly their top order.
And it already has the makings of a very vital game for them, that one against KKR, because just scrolling through their fixtures, the 3 after that, Rajasthan Royals, Lucknow Super Giants, Gujarat Titans. So that's as tough as it gets.
Yeah, for sure. I think, or even thinking back, I'm sure that there's a lot of players in that squad who will remember that last year they started with, I think, quite early on in the tournament, there was a winning streak, and I'm sure if they can sort of try and roll their memories back a year ago and think, you know, this needs to be the start of something similar where we win 4 or 5 in a row and try and make sure we keep pace with the pack, because I think if you look at the fixtures coming up in the next couple of days, we've got Chennai Punjab on Sunday where, you know, a couple of teams in contention will take points off one another. Then we've got RCB LSG as well on Monday in Lucknow. So again, you're going to have contenders taking points off one another. So if they can just try and keep pace with the bottom of that pack for now at least, then you never know. It can get to that point where maybe they get on a bit of a roll and give themselves an outside chance of sneaking in 3rd or 4th.
And hopefully keep that battle for the playoffs interesting and keep our interests high in the whole race for as long as possible. That will be all for this Saturday evening. Thank you, Tom, Matt, for your company through this long Saturday. Tom is back here again for the Sunday double, so look forward to your company again.
I look forward to being back.
And look forward to seeing you around in the office. You'll be back here soon as well. Thank you. And yes, everything from after the game, what does the captains have to say? David Warner has given a bit of an explanation as to why he thinks Akshar Patel wasn't batting out of position. Catch that on the ESPNcricinfo mobile app. We'll be back on here on Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 Time Out for the doubleheader on Sunday, which sees CSK versus Punjab, followed by Mumbai Indians versus Rajasthan Royals. Be sure to join us then. See you.